Yeah, thank you very much indeed for joining Piers Morgan Uncensored. My first question for you, I guess, is an obvious one. What do you hope to achieve from our conversation?
What's up, everybody? Back at it again. Fire here with BLACKFIRE-RISING. I got my man here, Kanan Powers. What's up, bro?
What's up? What's up?
Yeah, man. You know, we did the video not too long ago. We talked about Kanye. You know, Kanye's trending, man. I mean, like, what else is new? But back then I think we had made some predictions or thought what we might thought what we said what we thought might happen, which is, you know, the inevitable apology and the walking back. And lo and behold, something like an apology seems to be floating around out there. You know, I have an article here that I'm just going to paraphrase from, and I know you watched the video. Uh, and so we're just going to talk about that, what type of apology it was, if indeed that's what it is, and what does it say above and beyond what's already been said by Kanye. And I think we're going to touch a little bit on Kyrie Irving as well. You know, he's in the mix. You know, you got anything on that?
Yeah. They always seem to have to throw Kyrie in the mix somehow. They like picking on Kyrie, but he's another person that really, well, actually, I would say Kyrie do better at standing his ground. Like he don't say things without necessarily thinking. I think he's a little more savvy with that aspect because you don't hear too many apologies of any sort coming for Kyrie. But at the same time, the Kanye video, I think watching the entire video just gives a better insight of basically what that apology represented to me. So yeah, we can get into all that.
Facts, facts. Yeah, man. Thing about Kyrie is, man, I really admired him during the height of the, you know, when everything was going down with the jabs and the, you know, the face masking and all this stuff, man. And just the fact that he just stood on his principles, you know, as a man. He just said, this is what I believe. It's my body, it's my choice. I have authority over my body. And he stood on it, man, you know, and just was willing to accept those consequences, man. I know from personal experience, man, that's it's a what's that word, vainglorious place to be. It's like you're there, you're standing on your principles, so you get the strength of your identity, the overwhelming uh the overwhelming sort of support that you get within yourself, you know, the motivation of just claiming and owning yourself with authority. But then it's like you know, you leave yourself exposed to a lot of the naysayers and the hate and the campaigns and stuff like that. And a lot of people secretly admire your strength, but nobody wants to come out and you know, stand on it with you. So man, I really admired him for the stances that he took, whether
Yeah, I
people
agree.
believe they were right or they're wrong, you know. I
Yep.
just want to throw a disclaimer. We're not medical doctors. We're not giving medical advice or anything. These are our opinions. You know, I had some smoke with YouTube from one of the other videos about an opinion. So, you know, it seems
hmm
kind of early for that, especially when you look at the number of the subscribers down there. I don't know. I've seen bigger channels do worse, but yeah, man. If you ready, man, if you want to comment otherwise, man, I'll paraphrase from this article.
Yeah, you could go ahead to the article.
Okay. Well, starting out with Kanye West, um, talking about this quote unquote apology, and you know, make this video brief, but there was one particular part in this article that I was reading, and I'm going to quote from this and just offer this insider perspective for people to consider. And this is from October 29. This is titled Kanye West Tenders Apology Over Anti-Semitic Comments. This is from the Guardian Nigerian News. Okay. And I'll read this part first here, and then I'm going to rewind and just give a rendition of what I think may be happening here. So he says here, that story about Da Vinci alone, well, let me back up and read this sentence to get some momentum to go into this. It says, we have God inside us. We are a piece of God. So I'm going to go specifically to a person. That story about Da Vinci alone is enough reason for me to give a sincere apology to the Jewish people, because I do believe that there's a Da Vinci Code inside of all my misspellings and scribbles right here that God wants me to get to the world. So when I read this, man, the fact that he's referencing coding messages within the context of larger messages, it made me look at this entire message that he's giving. And ironically, is it possible that this notion of having a code within a message itself, meaning I want you to read deeper into what I'm saying right here and extrapolate, a code embedded here? Because verbatim, he says, there's the Da Vinci codes inside of all of my misspellings and scribbles right here that God wants me to get to the world. So how I am invited to look closer, I did. And one of the things that I found was pretty interesting about this message is that Da Vinci was also the name of the artist that was commissioned during so Da Vinci was an artist who was commissioned to paint the picture of Caesar Borgia that became the popularized rendition of Jesus Christ. And when they Europeanized, a lot of the people that were the original Jews or Hebrews, historically speaking, and according to the previous paintings and renditions of the apostles, Yeshua, AKA Jesus, and even the mother Mary, and the child Christ, these were all Black. And the Madonna was Black. At one point during the Renaissance in Europe, after they expelled the Moors out of the Iberic Peninsula, and in the 15th century, when the Renaissance kicked off, that was one of the largest media campaigns, I would say, in recorded history. But you needed people to paint pictures and write on scrolls and all this sort of thing to sort of convince them and sort of outsource this new image, or this image of the new Christ, which was a Europeanized version. Da Vinci was the one who is credited with painting that picture of that soft dude who's got his head leaned to the side and sparkle in his eyes and smooth skin, and looks like he uses head and shoulders, So it's ironic that while you're making an apology to Jewish people who would, by those intents and purposes, be part of those initial mass religious conversions into Judaism, because we know that Caucasian peoples and Europeans around that time, there was a mass conversion into Judaism where the Jews were not, the Semitic Jews, historically speaking, were not sort of the brown-skinned people, right? But people of other European races and origins began to convert to Judaism at that time. So it's ironic that he's speaking to people that could be part of some of those early mass conversions to Judaism, where their ties were religious and not necessarily genetic. But in that same comment, while you're apologizing to them for, inferring that, you make a reference to the very artist was part of this whole campaign to change the identity, at least aesthetically speaking. So I thought that was really interesting that he would reference Da Vinci. And, obviously he turned it into a reference of the Da Vinci Code, where you have messages embedded within deeper messages. But it's almost like, it makes you think, but But yeah, man, that's part of what makes it seem to me. And you know, you and I were talking earlier about the sincerity of the apology, or the authenticity of it. Is like, do you apologize for something that you don't believe is wrong? And if you do, what does that apology look like? Is it a double entendre? Is it saying something but also standing on it? What you think, man?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, watching the video and piecing it all together, the undertone of Kanye was super sarcastic, right? He was being very sarcastic in the video, even when he was talking to the guy. Um, Another thing I noticed is that Kanye references himself as Jew, right? And he was trying to make that known, like he considers himself Jew, right? So even when he apologized, it was almost like he was apologizing to himself. So I think he made that clear he wanted to stress that fact that he's not even apologizing to them, because he's not just accepting them as the only people that can claim that ethnicity or whatever, right? So again, he was super sarcastic as I watched the video. And then, so to go with your point, is like him saying that with the Da Vinci Code and looking at the hidden messages and what he was saying. I was doing that as I was watching and listening to him. A couple times he dropped the N word, right? And I noticed that the podcaster never called him out on it. He never said anything about it. And I think he did that intentionally because nobody's even addressing how that's racist, right? But if he says a particular thing about this other community, then it's anti-Semitic. So he's still showing the public that you only want me to come up here and apologize so Mel Gibson can make more movies. He actually said that in the interview. But he's making it clear that they don't care about the issue. They don't care why he was upset. They just want to hear Kanye apologize. So even in that interview, like I would take that and I would say that's not an apology at all. He's still trying to make his point, but at the same time make amends to a degree of saying that I'm playing chess and I know exactly what y'all trying to do to me and I have an agenda. And I think that that's what I was getting from watching it and listening to what he said. It's a long interview. I would recommend the audience to actually watch it all the way through. It's way better to watch it or read it, because then you can, it's like any movie or anything, right? If you just watch the ending, you might not understand what led up to that point. As he was talking, the reason why I say he was being very sarcastic, because he started writing down what the host would say, right? He actually grabbed a piece of paper and he said, "Oh, I like what you said. I'm gonna write that down. You know, if somebody was to say something to you and he was being sarcastic, like, oh, that's a good one. Let me write that down." So he was writing it down and he kept referencing that he's gonna write all these things down because they're great ideas, and they're talking about being engineers and pioneers of new ideas. So it was like a code. It was like watching somebody's Da Vinci Code, just listening to him speak. So I think it was super impressive the way that he did it, but at the same time not doing it the way that they like it. And I think that's going to still create a problem, because when people are having control issues, I think that it's hard for them to accept that you did something but didn't do it the way that they wanted you to do it.
Right. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that he kept saying, "Oh, let me write that down. Let me write that down," because in the the excerpt that I just or that I actually quoted, he mentions his scribbles and he refers to them, inside of my misspellings and scribblings right here. So, yeah, man. I think and one thing that is just, it's like some of these public quote unquote outcries, some of them may be authentic, grassroots, or organic, and I think some of them can be like manufactured, like in the sense that if you're in reality, if you're amongst the people, right, in order for you to hear a loud outcry, the people actually have to do it. But when you manufacture something, you could be sitting all by yourself and all you need to do is put on some nice headphones. And, you know, that way you could artificially turn up the volume and hear that same loud cry. And sometimes it seems like through their means of media technology and, you know, these, you know, the little screens they control that we carry around everywhere, it can be made to seem like, you know, there's this outcry. And it sounds loud and everything, man, but some of these, they reek of artificial. It's like the people that consume media, hip hop, rap, urban products are a majority, you know, white, young white people, statistically speaking. And then the question becomes, either they're okay with black hate speech, i.e., you know, N-word this, be that, you know, kill them up, shoot them. Either they're okay with that, and then they're not okay with sort of the Jewish quote unquote hate speech, or these sort of public outcries are actually coming from, you know, the top down. Like in some cases it's clear, like Kanye will say something and then it'll be that record executive, that producer, that sports team owner that get offended, and then that'll sort of kick it off, you know, in Twitter and some of these artificial spaces until it's like this public quote unquote outcry. So man, that's interesting. But
Yeah, for sure.
yes, sir. Man, in that vein, Kyrie Irving, like that we started out talking about, and this is from an article published on October 30th this year. NBA, Kyrie Irving at the heart of a huge scandal. I mean, just listen to that. I mean, man, this dude must have went out and, you know, started some sort of rebellion, and, you know, he sent some dirty emails to, you know, Kamala Harris or something. You know, he's at the heart of a huge scandal. So I'm like, oh, let me see what this is. On social media, and then this is a quote from the article. On social networks, the Brooklyn Nets player promoted a film deemed anti-Semitic and conspiratorial. In embarrassment, his management immediately reacted and planned to discuss with his star. Star of Brooklyn. There are all kind of misspellings here. They're supposed to say Nets. Kyrie Irving is at the heart of a huge controversy on social media. The player promoted a movie titled Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up, Black America. So I gotta confess, I do have this book. I did not get the movie yet. I actually at one point was kind of looking for it, but I do have the book on Kindle. And you know, the fact that he is, just by promoting this movie, now I gotta say, this book does not call for violence or any sort of action against people who are suspected you know, Jewish converts, or however you want to say it, even though this book does assert that the modern day people, individuals who inhabit and have taken politically the geographical land of Israel, do not have genetic lineage tied to that land, and they are not representative of the biblical genetic lineage, right, depicted in the scriptures. Even though the book does make that assertion, it does not therefore call for any sort of action against said people. But I just find it curious, that tragically curious, that you can say, hey, this movie enlightened me on a lot of things. I like it. I recommend it. By virtue of you having a job with the NBA, and by virtue of you having a personal preference, now all of a sudden this is hate speech and you ought to be punished. And I think in the interview I saw, they were talking about suspending him or doing something else, just by virtue of him liking this movie. What do you think about that?
I think it's all tied in together. As far as, because we just mentioned Kanye, um, so I'm gonna speak on it in general. But I think it's all in the same bubble of violating actual the right to free speech, right? Now the reason I say that is because freedom that comes with consequence is more free will, right? Like free will is not something that can be given to you or taken away by man, in my opinion. Like free will, like nobody can stop you from doing what you want to do in that sense. Now, the freedom that comes with the Constitution is based off American law, which says that you can exercise these rights without consequence. That's the point of the law. So the right to vote, right? You're supposed to be able to vote without somebody firing you from a job. So when Kyrie gets this type of backlash for just promoting a movie, I feel like it's in the same bubble of telling people how to talk, how to act, how to think. So at the end of the day, you notice that this predominantly happens to black celebrities. You don't see Dirk, Da Vinci, or, just to name other, white athletes. They don't go under this kind of scrutiny. Nobody's lurking through their social media pages, seeing what they post, seeing what they say, and then potentially fining them or saying that this is disgusting, this is despicable. So when I look at it from that standpoint, I think that is a huge attack on the black people to say that you guys are not allowed to speak and think a certain way. They don't want us to feel that we can say we are Hebrew. It's like, no, we already told you who you are. So it don't matter whether you are anti-Semitic or not. It's just the fact that you can't speak on certain things because we don't want you to. So I think Kyrie Irving really didn't do anything wrong, but it's just the fact that he's in a position that he has to defend something that he shouldn't even have to defend. So to me, I think that that's the foul in all of this. When you say what you say, I know I didn't address specifically what you were talking about, but my overall outlook and how all this ties together is I think that it's really just another attempt to oppress and suppress black thought and freedom to exercise their rights and liberties.
No, man, actually that is the vein in which I was going and asking about. It was a open-ended question as well. Not rhetorical, but open-ended in the sense that, Kyrie Irving, an individual, has a preference, is on his own individual journey, is learning, trying to delve back into the roots and figure out, who he is, as we all are. And I think that him coming across information that prove useful and inspirational to him, the instinct and the morally correct instinct is to share that. And I think that so that's fitting. My problem is with it, obviously, is that this whole thing about censorship is like, if you're not calling for violence against a certain people, and in fact, I think some of the things they cited, when I read this article clip, they just sort of give this anonymous blanket indictment of the movie and the book. It says, Wake Up Black America. It says, problem: the content of this film, released in 2018, was deemed anti-Semitic and conspiratorial. So here you have this sort of anonymous blanket just statement, was deemed passively by who? And it says this video is based on an obnoxiously anti-Semitic book, which notably claims that many high-ranking famous Jews And I think the book actually in the movie refers to them as Jewish specifically. Famous Jews have admitted to worshiping Satan or Lucifer, explains the Rolling Stones. Immediately, the net took the floor to disassociate themselves. The Nets, I guess they wanted. But the thing here is, man, it's problematic because it's non-specific. It's an indictment. It's a sweeping indictment against the book, the movie, the people that worked to author it. And it's sort of that whole straw man argument where it's like, instead of saying, okay, what historical evidence do they have to support these claims? Which is a proper way to do it. What historical evidence do they have to support these claims that, you know, are allegedly outlandish? Do they have any historical context? Do they have any documentation? Can they support these claims? That will be the correct and scholarly way to sort of dispute the thing. Not just say, oh, this was deemed outlandish and it said certain Jewish people admitted to worshiping Satan. Well, did they? I mean, are there video clips in the movie? Are there phrases in their own writings? Are there excerpts taken from the Talmud, perhaps? And these are things that, you know, they rob people of proper enlightenment and education by sort of glossing over all that and denying proper scholarly approach and just making sweeping accusations, you know, that just wind up being argumentative, you know, at the end of the day. But, you know, I always encourage people to, if you hear something on this channel or you see something, I mean, anywhere, you have to look into things. And if, you know, if you hear nuggets of information or something interesting on this channel, follow up on it. Come back in the comments, you know, we have no problem with that.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. But Kyrie Irving, trying to think, man, you know, they'll probably shut us down in a second here.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of it too, it's like if people can't, first of all, people should be able to lie, right? If you lie, okay, that's on you. If somebody find out that what you said was not true, it was false, right? If somebody go do the research and they find out that this is so to censor it because you're saying it is lie, it's a false, automatically to me sounds like almost a fear response that you don't want somebody to find the truth. Because who cares? It's been lies spread through history intentionally for generations. So it's not a moral stance to say like, oh, we just don't want to spread false information. Like, oh, all of a sudden, if the false information don't benefit a certain group of people, then they want to say we don't want to spread it. However, we could argue and say that they've been spreading, and this is just society. People have been spreading false information through the education system for generations, right? So I don't think that it's a matter of actually wanting people to have access to accurate information. It's just that they don't want certain groups of people to find empowerment in just research and being able to express that they found something new, whether it's true or false. And I think that's suppressing the freedom of a lot of things just in that act. Think you're on mute.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, like you said, they're not as concerned about the accuracy of what he's saying, because even, especially if he's telling the truth, that could be more threatening than if he was just making something up. But like the greater problem is, like, at least from their vantage, from their point of view, is they need to be able to control the propaganda machine. So like they need to be the loudest voice in the room. They need to tell people what's dangerous, what they're supposed to fear, who they're supposed to distrust, and sort of this same, you know, the playbook that they've been running, which is artificial supremacy, which, you know, depends to a great degree on controlling the propaganda and the media. And I think we see the plane landing. I think we see the plane landing in the sense that the current regime has been defying gravity for a while. And history teaches us, you know, every day that planes have to come down to earth. I think we see it landing. And I think like in that same approach, right? You look out the window and you're landing. I think one of the things that we can see is that sort of this attempt to like stifle awakenings, people's individual and communal awakenings. It causes the very sort of destiny, same sort of historical destiny. Like Kyrie Irving says to his fans, hey, I like this movie, Hebrews to Negroes. And so they rush out there to shut him up. And then they cite the movie that's so offensive. Now, guess what? Not only has Kyrie Irving's fans heard it, but all the people who you're sort of trying to rally against him, they're gonna have to figure out, well, what is this movie about? You know, what is this? What's the craziness about this movie? You know, let me look at it. You know, and it's like part of what is like you can't. I think there's a verse in the scriptures, you know, non-partially, you know, reciting this as a historical proverb. It says, you can't kick against the pricks. Like you're going against the, you know, you're going against the Messiah. In this context in the scripture, they was going against the Messiah. And he was saying, you can't fight against me. You might as well be kicking against the thorn bush, you know. Roll up your pants leg and start kicking that thorn bush until you beat it into submission. It's like something you really can't do. It's not going to work out for you. And trying to defy truth, the gravity of truth, you know, it's not going to work at the end of the day either, man. You know.
Exactly.
But yeah, man. You got anything else, bro?
No, not really. Just overall, like a few last minute points is, first of all, I want to address, I've had some people talking about the Kanye thing on other social media platforms where they basically were going into, they don't understand how any black person could support Kanye because he said things like white lives matter and slavery is a choice. And they feel that he should lose the black support because he's not really a black person. He's not doing this for anything other than his personal gain. So I bring up the point in that is sometimes I think that entertainers and people of such nature are put in positions where people expect so much from them. Like we can't support him at all because he says something we disagree with, right? I don't really care if Kanye truly believes if white lives matter. That's he a grown man with a grown man's opinion. Now I can disagree with him, right? But when it comes to what has he done for black people, my question that I pose to the public is, well, what has the Democratic Party done for black people, right? So if we're going to cancel people, or what has Planned Parenthood done for black people? So if we're going to cancel people that don't do anything good for black people, don't just start and stop with like black entertainers. We don't really have that expectation for them. So I think the main takeaway in all of this drama and rhetoric that goes on is really taking it for what it is, but really holding the true people accountable for what they should be doing. Kanye West is not a politician. What he says or don't say doesn't really matter to the extreme degree that I think the public may try to take it, if that makes sense. So regardless to what it's all about, take from it what's beneficial for us as a people, and then use that to be a voice to advocate for ourselves to the people who we really want to see change from, because we're not expecting that type of change from Kanye. We should be directing that energy towards presidents and politicians and other organizations that actually do destroy black people and set them back, versus saying somebody's words set black people back so far that we can't overcome until we silence them. That's kind of my ending. So I'm gonna wrap it up with that. If you got anything you want
Facts,
to say?
man. Nah, man. Yeah, man. I don't be studying people, man. People will be like, oh, I don't like what he said over here at this point in time. Therefore, I'm going to cancel everything. And it seems like we get real selective when we're dealing with each other. You know, when a lot of these Negroes and everybody else, they show up on Monday, boss pisses them off, says something. And, they come home with that story. Yeah, I was about to check them. I was about to tell them. Or sometimes, oh, I had to tell him. I was like, oh, yo, what you say? Well, I said, what you mean by that? I'm like, okay, you didn't really do nothing. You ain't busting a grape, but you're gonna go right back down there on Tuesday because it's something you're getting out of it. You wait for, the paycheck or when they compliment you or whatever it is. And then it's like you're able to chew the meat and spit out the bones when it comes to everybody else. But we want to get extra special and scrutinize with each other, man. But I agree with what you said. But y'all think about that. And shout out to everybody that was engaged in the comments on the first Kanye video. We welcome the comments, hit us up and shouts out to Dope Nation.
Peace.
Peace.